Let's look at one of the most common things that you'll use Photoshop for in preparing images for teaching and learning, and that is scaling images to a particular size. The most common way that you'll need to scale your images is down. After all, your digital camera and smartphone generally takes images at a significantly higher resolution than you need for presentations, documents, or websites. What we're about to do is going to be a potentially destructive process, so it's always a good idea to handle your final image scaling near the very end of your workflow. Now, for this image, I only have one more small change to make, and that is to rename this layer. So I'll double click on layer 1 and call it wall. Then go to the File menu and choose Save to save all of your changes. Then go back to File and this time choose Save As and change the name of your file to include an underscore scaled in the file name. And then click Save. Okay, so now we're all set. Go up to the Image menu and choose Image Size, or use the keyboard shortcut of Command-Option-I or Control-Alt-I. Now there's a lot going on in this window, so let's break it down. On the left side of the window is a preview, and if you move your mouse inside of there, you can pan around the image by clicking and dragging, or you can use the on-screen controls to zoom out to get a better view of your overall image. At the top of the right side, you can see your current image size in megabytes and the current pixel dimensions here. Below, you have the width and height and a small chain icon that either shows these dimensions linked together or not. Now, I'd suggest always leaving these two dimensions linked so that the small lines point at each of those parameters. That way, if you make any changes, Photoshop will uniformly scale both the width and height together so that your image will always remain in the correct proportions as you scale that image down. On the right, you can see the units, and pixels is usually the most useful dimension for us in teaching and learning. Under that, we have the resolution and a checkbox for resample. Now, if resample is unchecked, then your width, height, and resolution parameters will all be linked together. Now, this is really helpful if you're preparing an image for print or publication, and you have to send the image out at a particular size and resolution to the journal or printer. Now, many of these will ask that your image be either 150 or 300 dpi. And you can select that resolution field here and type that in. Notice when you change this value that our image size and dimensions all remain exactly the same. We haven't reduced the size of our image yet. We've just redefined how the pixels are going to be mapped to our image. Go ahead and click OK, and then let's go back to the Image Size tool. This time, check the box for resample so your image will remain at your chosen resolution, and then make sure your width and height are still linked together. Now, if you're sending this image off to print, set your units to either inches or centimeters and change the size down to your target size. If you're sending this image off to the web or into a presentation, then set your units to pixels. Now, I'm going for an image that's 1280 by 720, so I'll enter 1280 into my width field. And the height automatically adjusts to the correct proportion for the current crop. Now, we'll look at cropping in the next chapter. Now, since this height value is larger than my target size of 720, we're good to go. Now, if it was smaller, you'd then enter 720 into the height field here and let the width auto adjust. Notice this time that your file size is significantly smaller because Photoshop is going to combine many pixels into a new pixel and discard all of that extra information that's not going to be necessary in your final image for display on your slides or on the web. Click OK, and your image will be scaled to your final dimension if you've already cropped the image to your final aspect ratio. Otherwise, you can then crop your image to the exact pixel dimensions before exporting your final compressed image.